This lesson is on online learning in community colleges. Community colleges seem like a great space for online learning, and some of it has to do with the demographics of the students. So who attends community colleges? Community college students are more likely to be over 25 years old. The majority of them work full-time, and the majority are the first in their family to attend college. In addition, they're less likely to be academically prepared. This is for three reasons. One, they may have been underserved by their high school or just kind of didn't care. And two, most recent immigrants attend community colleges, and so their English skills may not be the best. And three, a lot of the students that attend community colleges are older students who are returning after a long break. This is a picture of students at Highline Community College, which was the community college near my house in Seattle. It's where my mom went back to school and got her nursing degree while she had 7 kids and living at home. She got married the week after graduating from high school and hadn't attended any sort of college at all for about 15 years. And so this was her re-entry back into college. Further, we may not realize it in such a high-tech community, but there's still a digital divide. And in 2009, only 42% of households who had an income less than $30,000 actually had high-speed internet. Only 52% of African Americans have high-speed internet, and only 47% of Hispanics have high-speed internet in their home. This becomes, it turns out, a requirement for a high-quality online class is this, and so the lack of high-speed internet can be a real barrier to a successful online learning experience. So you'd think with so many non-traditional students and students working full-time that they'd want to take online learning and that this would be a space where it would be. And in fact, more community colleges offer online learning than do 4-year universities. So let's think about, what do you think that the outcomes are? Well, they're not great. There is research that shows that there's a lot of research that compares online learning to face-to-face classes and shows that they're about the same. But the research doesn't really show the full picture for a community college. So it turns out that most of the research that shows no difference between face-to-face and online classes is done for students that attend universities and are high-achieving students. And that's not the kind of student in the community college. And so it turns out that completion rates for community college online classes are substantially lower than for in-person classes. And for the community college students who actually complete the course, they're less likely to earn a good grade, a C or above, than students taking a class in person. The reason the research might look better for comparing the classes too is that community college students are also more likely to withdraw from an online class in the middle of the semester. And so it kind of skews the findings at the end. The dynamics of community college make these withdrawal and failure rates even worse for community college students. So remember, these students are attending part-time. They're paying by the credit. They're paying hundreds of dollars for each course that they take. And if they withdraw or fail, they don't get that money back. And it can be a huge financial setback for them. And so the dire research shows that community college students who take an online course in early semesters are less likely to return to school. They just don't keep going if they have a failure experience. And this is true whether or not they fail the class. Even if they pass the class, they're still less likely to come back. And community college students who took a higher proportion of credits online were less likely to attain that credential or transfer to a 4-year institution. So there's really a lot of long-term dire impact for a poor online class experience for community college students. And it really undercuts their progression and their career goals. So why do you think this is? Well, there's 4 main factors. The first is social distance. Studies show that many online community college courses lack a sense of social presence, and so students complain about things like social feedback, a lack of feedback, and they also feel really isolated. They feel isolated from their instructors and from their students. And there seems to be a lack of support at community colleges for training and for constructing effective online courses. And so studies have found that most faculty are left to design their online courses all by themselves. And any sort of training and support they get is mainly technical. It's not pedagogical. And they also, studies show that faculty at a community college don't necessarily get any extra money for the time they spend designing this course. And a lot of times the institution thinks, oh, well, great, an online course, we can teach more students for less money. And so the class loads tend to actually be higher for faculty for online courses than for face-to-face classes. And there's a lot of technical difficulties. So going back to the digital divide, some students actually try to take an online course with a dial-up internet or internet that they get at a library, and those can cause technical problems. Things take too long to download, or sometimes they are working with old computer equipment that just that can't show videos, that can't download things easily. And finally, there's a lack of structure. So it turns out that college courses that are really effective for this kind of demographic, this at-risk student, classes that are effective have a lot more structure and scaffolding than your normal college class does. And most successful outcomes for online learning, like I mentioned before, are classes that are aimed at high motivating, high income, high education level students. So they just lack the scaffolding and structure. So there's an interesting kind of digression in the article that talks about natural development versus concerted cultivation, which I thought was interesting. So a lot of low-income families or working-class families raise their kids under a kind of a natural development philosophy. And children from a natural development philosophy tend to be more passive in their approach to institutions. They may have trouble diagnosing their own needs and are reluctant to ask an authority figure for help, versus children raised with concerted cultivation. And children raised with a concerted cultivation philosophy encourage their children to be self-directed and forthright advocates. And so the difference seems to come out a lot in online learning. You need to be more self-directed, able to ask for help. And so I thought this was an interesting little sidelight to some of the needs of community college students. So what can be done? I'm sure as we went about as we discussed the problems, each of you put on your instructional designer hat and thought of ways we could do things. And the article says that first and foremost, community colleges need to create stronger campus-wide systems for evaluating. Individual teachers can do something, a few things, but there really needs to be a commitment at the institution level for improving and tracking and evaluating and improving the quality of online teaching and learning. Really, one teacher can't do this alone. There needs to be changes to the compensation structure, to the training structure, etc. And instead of just asking individual instructors to build online courses by themselves, they have more success with courses that are built with teams that include an instructional designer who might understand more of the pedagogical techniques that can be used to create structure and to create a social presence. And the article advocates that they require intensive pedagogical training for online faculty so that they really do understand that there are differences in how you would present material in an online setting versus in a classroom setting. In addition, there's a lot we can do to explicitly help students learn how to succeed in an online course and provide more scaffolding. And finally, they need to do a better job of screening students who register for online classes and have a little checklist that pops up and says, do you have this required equipment? Do you have the technology skills you need, etc. And really before allowing students to sign up for online learning, they need to make sure they have the tools they need to succeed. Now, in researching this article, I came across a great resource if you're interested in learning more about community college learning, and that's the Community College Consortium, Research Consortium that's housed at Columbia University, and it's a great resource. The author of this chapter, in fact, is a full-time analyst and researcher for the center, as well as the researchers who talked about the concerted cultivation and natural development. Also has a couple really interesting articles on this site. I hope hope that as you enthusiastically develop your instructional design, technology, and research skills, that we'll all not forget to prioritize and address the learning needs of some of our society's most vulnerable learners, so we can help everybody be successful. Thanks.